So yeah, I guess one fun fact about myself. Does everybody know the TV show Power Rangers? Yeah? All right, so many, many years ago, I actually auditioned for the yellow Power Ranger. I have absolutely no fighting abilities or fighting skills, but apparently my acting wasn't really up to scratch, so I ended up in a career of market research. So I'm in the innovations team at Millward Brown, and my focus is on mobile. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the consumer brand experience and how we can use mobile to measure that. But before we get into that, I just wanted to share with you a little framework about how we could think about mobile research. And I've always found this to be really helpful when approaching a research problem, to think, or to ask myself, is the research about mobile? So understanding mobile as a marketing channel and how effective that is. Or is the research using mobile as a research methodology? So today we're going to talk about using mobile as a methodology to investigate the brand experience. All right, so what is a brand experience? Brand experience is essentially looking at the way consumers come into contact with brands. And that can be in terms of paid advertising, but it could also simply be talking about a product with friends or actually using the product and having an experience with the product itself. And this is important because it really helps round out our understanding of brands. I think too often we focus just on the advertising side and we don't really pay attention to the whole picture. So that's what brand experience can help us do. Okay, so how can mobile help us measure the brand experience? I think the challenge that we've been facing as an industry is, up until now, the previous methodologies, or I should say the current methodologies that we use, really help us to understand how consumers think and feel about brands, but at a very high level. So I'm talking about when we use online surveys or even a face-to-face methodology. This is really good at understanding at a high level and using recall-based methodologies how consumers think and feel. But what mobile can help us do is get a lot more granular in our research and start to understand very specific moments on how consumers are interacting with brands, not just where they interact with brands, but also when they interact with brands. And we can do this in real time and in the moment. So we had an opportunity recently to work with one of the world's largest CPG brands to investigate the brand experience in the shampoo and hairstyling category. And together with them, we looked into two different areas. The first is, how do brand experiences impact the way consumers think and feel about brands? And the second was, how can we start to understand the way consumers navigate and journey through different brand experiences? So how did this study work? When designing the study, it was really important to us how we were using mobile. We didn't want to just use it because we could. We wanted it to have a real purpose in the study. So what we ended up doing was creating a mobile diary, and we combined this with an online survey as well as an online community. So there were 4 basic stages to the research. The first was that we recruited a sample via a panel. So we had 500 women who use shampoo and hairstyling products nowadays, which I hope is most of us. And, and we asked them to do a very short brand health survey. And that was really just to figure out the relationship they had with the brand and with the category, and to learn a little bit more about their demographics so we could profile them. They then did a mobile diary study, and this was done for a week. And the reason we chose a week was because we had done some previous research to try and figure out that optimal time that someone would want to spend with a diary. And we found that if we went any more than a week, so 7 days, that we started to lose respondent engagement and the quality of data went down. So we got respondents to do this for a week, and essentially what they had to do was log and rate every experience they had with the brand and with the category. So we'd ask them, what brand did you experience? How did you experience it? Was it on TV? Was it a conversation with friends? Was it actually using the product? And based on each experience, how positive or how negative was that experience? And all of that was very quick. It should have taken them about 15 seconds, so we wanted to make it a very, very quick engagement. We then followed that up with an online community. So I think it's important to note that it's the same respondent going through every single stage. And I really like this pairing of mobile and an online community, because with mobile, we all know it's very good at collecting data in the moment, but it needs to be a very short interaction. So following this up with an online community, so an online sort of forum, it allowed us to ask a lot more questions. So we could figure out not just what people were experiencing, but why they were experiencing that. What experiences were very positive, what made them positive, and what experiences were really influencing the decisions about the brand and the category. The final thing to note is that although each respondent went through this for 1 week, the total study went for 5 weeks, and this was done earlier this year in February. All right, so what did we find? In terms of how do brand experiences impact the way consumers think and feel about the brand, just to give a little bit of background on the brand, the particular brand that we looked at, this was a very new brand. It launched early in 2012. So its biggest challenge was to raise awareness and really get people to try the product. So you can see it here versus 2 of the other leading brands in the category. So our brand, Brand X, was significantly lower in terms of its awareness and also generating trial or usage. So that was its biggest problem. The other thing we know about this brand is we had done some previous TV copy testing for it. So we knew from a TV standpoint, its TV advertising also had some challenges. So it could have been a little bit better branded, and a couple of people thought it was confusing as well. But the important point to note is that if we had just looked at the TV advertising, we would have said this brand has some real problems. But what we did was we looked at the total brand experience, which included the paid advertising, but also just product experience and conversations with friends. And we saw that when we looked at the total brand experience, this brand was actually generating some very positive feelings. So the people that were using this brand actually said, we'd actually like to use it again. It was actually a very positive experience for us. Now this chart looks quite simple, but there's actually a lot that goes on behind it. So on the surface, it's the total sort of feeling toward the brand. But the important thing here is that because we used mobile as a methodology, we were able to break down every single encounter that a respondent had with the brand and have them rate that. So this is really an amalgamation of all those different encounters, which we wouldn't have been able to do with a standard online methodology or face-to-face methodology. So you're probably thinking, that was the overall feeling toward the brand, but how does that break down in terms of different touch points, and which touch points were more meaningful than others? So when we looked at conversations that came out of the online community, it was apparent that different consumers were encountering the brand in different ways. So some consumers placed a real emphasis on recommendations from friends and online reviews. Others really focused on the product performance itself. So it was very important how the product performed. It wasn't just about its price or how it smelt. There were others that really valued recommendations from their hairstylist, even though they didn't buy it from their hairstylist. And there were some which were more price conscious, so they focused a lot on coupons. But I think the important thing to note here is in the top right-hand corner that a lot of people said TV advertising was very noticeable. They saw TV advertising, but it was all the same. So if they had just gone on that, they might not have actually tried the brand. They're actually looking for a more holistic experience with the brand. And again, that's why it's so important to measure the total brand experience. So we wanted to look into this a little bit further to try and figure out if there were groups of people that were experiencing the brand in similar ways. So we ended up doing a segmentation study based on the way consumers encounter the brands in the category, and we found that there were 5 key segments. I won't go through all of these in the interest of time, but just to highlight a couple, we had our product enthusiasts, so folks that didn't pay attention to a lot of advertising, but really focused on that product performance. We also had deal hunters, which were people that were more focused on coupons and the shopping experience, but also recommendations from their hairdresser. So they were probably people who were a bit more out and about, so shopping, coupons, and hairdressers. We also had a digital savvy segment, and these folks tended to be a little bit younger, a little less affluent, but they were all about online, social, and mobile. So now we know the different ways different groups of consumers come into contact with brands, but we also know that not all of these encounters were created equal. So there were some encounters that were more memorable than others. And the way we got at memorability in this case was we looked at how positive or how negative each encounter was with the respondent. So this is through the mobile diary. We had a 5-point scale. We said for each encounter, tell us if that was very negative, it made no difference, positive, or very positive. Now, luckily with this category, there weren't a lot of negative experiences. So what we did was we focused on just the very positive experiences. So what you're looking at here for these two different segments is the percentage of people that said, I had a very positive experience with a particular touch point. And there's two important things to note here. I think the first is that you can see for both of these segments, the actual product experience, so using shampoo in the shower or the bath, was the experience that was most positive. This was the thing that was driving the most memorable experiences with a brand, even over more traditional advertising. The other thing to note is that with the deal hunters, when you look at touch points like shopping, conversation with a hairstylist, and coupon, they're all pretty equal in terms of their memorability. But with the digital savvy segment, the most sort of memorable experiences were more about online and social. Mobile definitely contributed in terms of generating the number of encounters that people had with this category, but for this particular brand and category, it just wasn't very memorable. So I think from a creative standpoint, there's some learnings here. One is that we need to make sure there's a lot of synergy between different touch points that are important to different groups, and we also want to make sure that certain touch points are memorable. So in this case, there's an opportunity here to dial up mobile as a touch point. From a media standpoint, we wanted to look into this in a little bit more detail. And is Debbie Solomon here? Hey, Debbie. So Debbie touched on this a little bit yesterday in terms of getting more granular about the time of day and also the day of week that people are experiencing different touch points. And again here, we're just going to call out two different segments, our deal hunters and our digital savvy folks. And you can see that there's different patterns in their behavior. Don't focus too much on the number of encounters, it's more about the actual patterns. So with the deal hunters, they're experiencing this category mainly Monday to Thursday, a little bit less in terms of Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And for our digital savvy folks, for some reason, they seem to peak on Tuesday. So from a media planning standpoint, this really helps us to make more informed decisions there and really figure out where to place our bets. Similar when we look at time of day, it's really interesting to see the different peaks and troughs on when these different segments are experiencing the category. And I think a lot of you are probably wondering what's happening there at 9 o'clock at night. We've got that massive peak. This is more of a design learning for us. So when we did the mobile diary, we wanted to make sure people were engaged, so we sent out a reminder notification every night at 9 o'clock. Yesterday, somebody brought up the point that we need to be careful about. I think it was normalizing the time of day. In this particular case, it was sent out at 9 o'clock every night in that person's particular time zone, so it was always consistent. But I think the learning here is that obviously people saw the reminder and they started logging their experiences, and we did give them the opportunity to backdate it and backtime it, but it looks like a lot of them didn't do that. So I think for us, in terms of designing future studies, what we might do is spread out the reminder notifications just so there's a little bit less bias there. All right, so that's all I have for you today. I think that the key takeouts for me are that mobile's really great in terms of helping us get more granular in terms of our research, and it's a great way to complement other types of research like online surveys and also online communities. And the other thing to keep in mind is when designing mobile research, it's really important to keep it simple. We all know mobile has its benefits, but it also has its limitations. So we just want to be very conscious of that. and not be afraid to complement mobile as a methodology with other types of methodologies. Thank you very much.